In the high-stakes, hyper-volatile world of cryptocurrency, one name stood above the rest as the symbol of institutional legitimacy: Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF. While other crypto founders were seen as rebels or outlaws, SBF was the adult in the room. With his messy hair, cargo shorts, and a philosophy of effective altruism, he convinced the world that he wasn't just building an exchange, he was building a machine to save the world. By 2022, his exchange, FTX, was valued at $32 billion, backed by the most prestigious venture capital firms on the planet. But the ultimate blunder wasn't just a market crash. It was the realization that the world's most trusted crypto empire was built on a foundation of systemic, calculated fraud. The rise of FTX was meteoric. Founded in 2019, it quickly became the second-largest crypto exchange in the world. SBF's brilliance was in his marketing of trust. He appeared on magazine covers, testified before Congress, and spent hundreds of millions on sports sponsorships, including the naming rights to the Miami Heat's arena and a star-studded Super Bowl ad. He wasn't just selling a platform. He was selling the idea that crypto had finally grown up. Investors like Sequoia Capital and Temasek poured billions into FTX, often skipping basic due diligence because they were so captivated by SBF's genius persona. The blunder of the elites was falling for the narrative of the reluctant billionaire who just wanted to give it all away. Beneath the surface of FTX lay a fatal conflict of interest: Alameda Research. Alameda was SBF's private hedge fund, a separate entity that was supposed to trade independently of the exchange. However, the two were inextricably linked. The core of the fraud was a secret backdoor in the FTX software that allowed Alameda to draw on FTX customer deposits to fund its own speculative trades and high-risk investments. This wasn't a mistake. It was a structural design flaw intended to treat customer money as a private piggy bank. While SBF told the world that FTX was fine and that assets were safe, billions of dollars were being drained to cover Alameda's mounting losses. The fuel for this engine was FTT, a native token created by FTX. In a classic circular economy blunder, FTX would issue FTT tokens, keep a majority for themselves, and then use the artificially inflated market value of those tokens as collateral for loans. Alameda would then borrow real customer money from FTX using these magic beans as security. It was a massive house of cards. As long as the price of FTT stayed high, the empire looked solvent. But the moment the market questioned the value of that single token, the entire multi-billion-dollar structure would have no choice but to collapse. SBF's effective altruism served as the perfect smokescreen. By promising to donate his fortune to global causes, he disarmed his critics and charmed regulators. He was the good billionaire, the one who lived in a shared apartment and drove a Corolla while quietly funneling customer funds into political donations and luxury real estate in the Bahamas. Act 1 is the story of a world that wanted to believe in a hero. Act 2 will be the story of how a single tweet from a rival brought the entire illusion crashing down in less than a week. Please subscribe if you're enjoying our content. The end of the FTX empire didn't start with a regulatory raid or a court order. It started with a balance sheet. In November 2022, CoinDesk published a bombshell report revealing that Sam Bankman-Fried's hedge fund, Alameda Research, was essentially insolvent. The report exposed that Alameda's largest asset was not a stable currency or a blue-chip stock, but billions of dollars worth of FTT, the very token created by FTX itself. The world suddenly realized the genius strategy was a circular scam. SBF was using his own house-made tokens as collateral to borrow real customer cash. The blunder was out in the open, and the market's reaction was instantaneous. Enter Changpeng Zhao, CZ, the CEO of Binance and SBF's fiercest rival. Sensing blood in the water and citing recent revelations, CZ announced on Twitter that Binance would liquidate its entire holding of FTT tokens. This was the match that lit the fuse. CZ's tweet triggered a massive global bank run. Within 72 hours, panicked investors attempted to withdraw over $6 billion from the FTX platform. But there was a catastrophic problem. The money wasn't there. SBF had spent it, lent it to Alameda, or used it to buy influence and real estate. The adult in the room was caught in a multi-billion-dollar lie. As the panic intensified, SBF took to Twitter in a desperate attempt to stop the bleeding, famously tweeting, "FTX is fine, assets are fine." It was a historic blunder of public relations, a blatant lie told while his team was frantically searching for a bailout. Behind the scene in the Bahamas penthouse was one of pure chaos. SBF reached out to every major venture capital firm and even his rival CZ for a rescue deal. For a brief moment, Binance signed a non-binding letter of intent to buy FTX, but after looking at the books for just 24 hours, they backed out. The hole in the balance sheet was simply too deep and too toxic for anyone to touch. The internal culture of FTX was finally revealed as a college dorm environment masquerading as a financial titan. Reports emerged of a small group of executives living together in a $65 million luxury penthouse, managing billions of dollars with almost no oversight, no board of directors, and using an encrypted chat app to move funds. They used QuickBooks for accounting, a tool for small businesses, to manage a multi-billion-dollar global exchange. This lack of basic corporate governance was the ultimate blunder. It allowed the fraud to grow unchecked until it was too large to hide and too broken to fix. By Friday of that fateful week, the unthinkable happened. FTX, the titan of the industry, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Sam Bankman-Fried resigned in disgrace, and a new CEO, John J. Ray III, the man who handled the Enron liquidation, was brought in to find the missing money. His first assessment was chilling. He had never seen such a complete failure of corporate controls. Act 2 ends with the collapse of the brand. Act 3 will follow the trail of the missing billions and the arrest of the man who claimed he just wanted to save the world. The aftermath of the bankruptcy was not a quiet legal proceeding. It was a high-speed disintegration of a cult of personality. As the world watched in disbelief, the effective altruist was arrested by Bahamian authorities at his luxury compound. The image of SBF in handcuffs, stripped of his billion-dollar aura, became the defining photo of the crypto crash. But the true betrayal was happening behind closed doors. SBF's inner circle, the people he lived with, worked with, and allegedly loved, began to turn on him. Caroline Ellison, the CEO of Alameda Research, and Gary Wang, FTX co-founder, quickly struck plea deals with the Department of Justice, admitting to the conspiracy and agreeing to testify against their former leader. The blunder of SBF was believing he was the smartest person in any room, even a courtroom. While his lawyers begged him to stay silent, SBF embarked on a bizarre, self-guided apology tour, giving interviews to the New York Times and appearing on live streams. He tried to frame the disaster as a series of accounting mistakes and sloppy management, rather than a premeditated crime. This was a catastrophic legal blunder. Every word he spoke was meticulously recorded by federal prosecutors, providing a mountain of evidence that contradicted his own internal records. He was effectively talking himself into a life sentence, trying to use the same charm that fooled investors to fool the justice system. As the federal trial began in New York, the testimony from his former friends painted a devastating picture of a crime of hubris. Caroline Ellison revealed that SBF had personally directed her to steal customer funds to pay back Alameda's lenders and to create alternative balance sheets to hide the truth. The court heard how SBF used the stolen billions to buy over $200 million in Bahamian real estate and to funnel over $100 million in illegal dark money political donations to influence both sides of the aisle. The Messiah in cargo shorts was exposed as a cold-hearted architect of a massive, multi-generational theft. The scale of the mismanagement uncovered by the new FTX CEO, John J. Ray III, was almost comedic if it weren't so tragic. He discovered that FTX employees submitted expenses via emojis in Slack, and that company funds were used to buy houses for staff in the Bahamas without any formal loan agreements. There wasn't even an accurate list of who worked for the company or where the cash was held. This wasn't a sophisticated financial heist. It was a shambolic disaster hidden behind a sleek website and a charismatic founder. The blunder was global. Regulators, sophisticated VCs, and millions of retail users had all outsourced their common sense to a man who didn't even keep a basic ledger. By the end of the trial, the jury took less than 5 hours to find Sam Bankman-Fried guilty on all 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy. The man who promised to give away a fortune to save humanity was now facing decades in a federal prison. But as SBF was led away, a new question emerged. Where was the money? And could the victims ever be made whole? Act 3 ends with the conviction. Act 4 will explore the strange multi-billion-dollar recovery process and the permanent scar FTX has left on the future of money. The sentencing of Sam Bankman-Fried to 25 years in federal prison marked the end of the boy wonder era, but the fallout of the FTX blunder continues to ripple through the global economy. In a strange twist of financial irony, the bankruptcy estate, led by the man who cleaned up Enron, discovered that because the crypto market rebounded so strongly in 2024, there might actually be enough value left to pay back the victims. However, this is a bitter victory. Creditors are being paid back based on the value of their crypto at the time of the collapse in 2022, meaning they missed out on the massive gains of the recent bull market. The blunder didn't just steal their money, it stole their future. The legacy of FTX is one of shattered institutional trust. Before the collapse, major pension funds and sovereign wealth funds were beginning to view crypto as a legitimate asset class. FTX was their gateway. When it turned out to be a shambolic fraud, that bridge was burned. The blunder forced a global regulatory crackdown, with the SEC and other bodies moving from a position of innovation-friendly to maximum enforcement. The industry is now facing a compliance winter, where the cost of doing business has skyrocketed, and the barrier to entry has become impenetrable for new startups. SBF didn't just destroy his own company, he poisoned the well for an entire generation of entrepreneurs. Perhaps the most profound blunder revealed in the aftermath was the failure of effective altruism as a moral compass for business. SBF used the philosophy as a utilitarian shield, arguing that the good he would eventually do with the money justified the shortcuts he took to get it. This moral arrogance is a recurring theme in multi-billion-dollar blunders, the belief that the end justifies the means. By co-opting a movement meant for charity, he caused irreparable damage to the reputation of non-profits and philanthropic organizations worldwide, leaving donors skeptical and genuine charities struggling to prove their transparency. Today, the empty FTX headquarters in the Bahamas stand as a modern ruin, a monument to the era of easy money and the dangers of the founder worship cult. The sophisticated VCs who skipped due diligence have had to write off billions, and the celebrities who endorsed the exchange face ongoing class action lawsuits that will haunt their careers for years. The FTX story is a definitive warning that in the digital age, a sleek user interface and a charismatic leader are no substitute for a board of directors, a third-party audit, and basic human honesty. As we close the file on Project 19, the lesson of the FTX empire of cards is clear. The faster a financial empire rises on a foundation of hype, the more violent its inevitable collapse will be. Sam Bankman-Fried wanted to be the world's first trillionaire and its greatest savior. Instead, he became a cautionary tale about the cost of hubris. In the world of finance, there are no shortcuts to trust, and there is no such thing as a blank check for virtue. The empire is gone, the billions were vaporized, and all that remains is a 25-year sentence and a world that is a lot more cynical than it was before. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. See you next time, and thank you for exploring the world of billion-dollar blunders with us.